Hi guys, welcome back to another Lanterna English tutoring video. Today we're focusing on how to nail your English IB Paper 1. This is part 2 of 2 videos, how to structure an essay. So if you didn't see the first part, go ahead, watch that and then come back here. So, before we think about how to actually structure our essay, we need to bear in mind the assessment objectives, okay? So this is what the examiners really want to see for us. For English Paper 1, students have to show they as readers have made an understanding of the text, right? And they have formed their own interpretation. Now, it's important to bear in mind, there is no one right answer in English, right? It's a creative subject and there are lots of subjective interpretations for poems, for prose, and things like that, okay? But what you really have to do is support your interpretation by using evidence, okay? And this is based around the writer's choices. This is things like language. Are they similes, metaphors, things like that? Is it emotive language or is it based around facts? The structure, if it's a poem, think, are there regular verse lengths? Are there long sentences or short sentences? Is there a lot of punctuation used, for example? And then technique and style, okay? So what is the overall tone of the author's writing? Is it a happy passage? Is he maybe trying to transmit some kind of moral message? Is she aiming at portraying something in a certain way? So these are all things you have to bear in mind. And then finally, what we really have to do is when we're writing an essay, which is what we'll be focusing on today, is we have to make sure that our response is coherent and well organized, okay? Now, bear in mind that the person marking your exam is going to have to mark at about, 100 scripts, maybe even more. So the easier you make it for them to understand what you're writing about, the better your mark will be, guaranteed. So, this video will cover how to structure your essay for paper 1. Now in the previous video we looked at the poem The Ballad of Birmingham, so that's what we will be basing our essay around today. And as I said, we'll be looking at how we put this into essay format, okay? So we came up with a lot of evidence and a lot of ideas in the last video. Today we need to figure out how we put pen to paper. So, the introduction. First things first, you need to introduce the passage, okay? You need to do this in the first line of your introduction, and you need to state the name of the passage, the author, and you need to give a brief synopsis. This helps the examiner know that you know what the poem is about, or what the passage is about, okay? For example, taking this poem, The Ballad of Birmingham, we can say, The Ballad of Birmingham is a poem by Dudley Randall about a young girl that wants to participate in a civil rights march in 1960s Alabama. Now above we have 4 very clear components in this first part of the introduction, okay? We explicitly state the title of the piece that we're thinking about, the type of text, is it a poem, is it prose, is it fiction, is it non-fiction? We give the name of the author, and we just give a brief summary, okay? So nice and simple so far. The second thing is to introduce some details about the passage. This is important bits in the plot, or any deeper meaning that starts to emerge. This shows the examiner that we have more than a surface level understanding of what's going on in the passage, okay? So this is very important. For example, throughout the poem, the mother tries to keep her daughter safe by sending her to the church and to avoid the danger of protesting. However, the church is bombed and the daughter dies. Through this, Randall conveys that staying neutral is ineffective in the context of oppression. So like I said, the first part of this focuses on the more important plot points, and then we're able to draw a conclusion about the deeper meaning from this, okay? The idea that staying neutral is ineffective in the context of oppression. So, the third part of the introduction, the last part, is the most important part, okay? And this is the thesis. So this conveys what the deeper meaning of the poem is and how, this is most important, how it is achieved, how it is conveyed by the author. And though English is a creative subject, this uses quite a set formula. So, you say through before you list the following factors, okay? So through, you use a colon, paragraph topic 1, paragraph topic 2, and paragraph topic 3, the author conveys/establishes the deeper meaning of the passage, okay? And we also want to use semicolons here, in between listing the paragraph topics. So, our first paragraph topic in this case is about lullaby-like rhyme scheme and structure. Our second paragraph topic is the use of imagery. And the third paragraph topic is the mother and daughter's relationship, okay? So, it's clear that we separate these with the semicolon just so it's really, really obvious to the examiner that we've partitioned our ideas and that we've met the assessment criteria, in that we've structured it very carefully. So, through the use of a lullaby-like rhyme scheme and structure, use of imagery, and the mother and daughter's relationship, Randall creates a strong sense of irony in the poem and conveys that neutrality is not an option for the oppressed. So, like I said, imagine this is a bit of an equation and we say this plus this plus this equals the deeper meaning, equals what the poet wants to convey, communicate. Onto the body paragraphs now, okay? And these have a number of components. The first thing you need to do with any body paragraph is start it with a topic sentence, okay? This should be one sentence that introduces the theme you're going to be talking about in this paragraph and say how it contributes to this overall meaning, okay? What role does it play in this equation? For example, if we're talking about the theme of the mother and daughter in this poem, The Ballad of Birmingham, we can always start with this word through as well. We can say, through contrasting the concern of the mother with the daughter's carefree attitude, Randall creates a strong sense of irony as the mother's attempt to protect her daughter ultimately leads to her death. Okay? Now it's really important with your topic sentence, you keep it quite short, you keep it quite simple, and you keep it quite refined. Ask yourself, how can I sum up the impact of this paragraph topic in just one sentence and make it, again, as clear as possible for the examiner why you're writing and why you've chosen to write about this particular topic. It's also key to introduce this with certain words, right? So you can say, through this technique, or in addressing this theme, or by focusing on the mother and the daughter's relationship, for example. And then you go on to say how that helps the poet. So through doing this, by focusing on this, Randall conveys a sense of irony and the idea that not standing up to oppression can nonetheless be fatal. The second component of this, of your body paragraph, is what really puts the meat on the bones, right? So this is the longest part of it. And this is PQAL. It stands for Point, Quote, Analysis, Link. So you should have around 3 to 4 in these. And we covered them in more detail in the previous video. But what it really is you make a point about a piece of evidence that you'll introduce. You then quote the evidence. Then you analyze the quote by picking out individual words, and then you link it back to the point of the paragraph. So, the link section should try to use very similar language to that from the topic sentence just to be extra clear to your marker, alright? Then the final bit of the body paragraph is your concluding sentence, okay? Now, this is very important because it reminds the examiner what you've told them. The most effective way to communicate to someone is to tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell it to them, and then tell them what you've told them, right? So, our concluding sentence sums up the points we've made, and it should also convey the deeper message of the poem. In this case, it's about standing up to oppression. So, for example, for this paragraph on the mother and daughter's relationship, we can say, Randall successfully displays the irony of the situation by showing how protective instinct has failed in the face of oppression. Though the daughter avoids protesting, Randall illustrates how neutral people often suffer at the hands of oppressors anyway, thus encouraging us to protest instead of stay neutral. Notice also how at the start we say that Randall successfully displays the irony of the situation. Now, if you really want to push up your writing into that top bound, into really certainly getting a 7, then you can pass judgment on how successfully things are done. For example, we have 3 paragraphs that we've proposed in this, one of which is the mother and daughter, one is on structure. So we could weigh up, do we think the mother and daughter's relationship is more successful at transmitting the message than the use of structure? Again, it's up to you. You just need to back up what you think with evidence. Then finally, on to the conclusion, okay? So this comes at the end of our essay, obviously, and the first thing we need to do is to restate our thesis, okay? Now, we don't want to rewrite it again word for word, but we do want to keep its core message and reinforce what 3 factors, what 3 topics have helped the author really communicate the message of the poem. So, our restated thesis for this could be, through the use of imagery, direct speech and structural techniques such as rhyme scheme, and use of the mother and daughter's relationship, Randall creates a strong sense of irony in the poem. Now the second part is where we briefly restate the argument. For example, the mother's attempts to protect her child are in vain, and her death contrasts sharply with the intimacy of their relationship. This tragedy reiterates this irony to the reader. Okay, so here we're talking about what actually happens. We're not talking about the formal and stylistic and literary techniques that contribute to the meaning. We're saying, okay, how does the actual plot convey this as well, right? So the fact that the daughter dies obviously really conveys this irony and this idea that oppression can get you no matter where you hide. Then finally, we end by emphasizing why this deeper meaning is significant, okay? It helps us to realize what the point of the poem is and why the poet has even bothered to write it. For example, thus Randall expresses that innocents are often the victims of oppression and discourages neutrality in these situations. So, that is how you structure an essay. Now, you can click on the link below for part 1, or you can get in touch with Lanterna to check out our online private tuition. Just go to Lanterna Education in Google and you'll find us there. If not, you can look at our Facebook page and there will be links below in the bio. Stay tuned for another couple of videos. Thank you very much for watching and hope to see you guys again soon, and maybe I'll even help you out with your exams. Alright, cheers, bye bye.